What a run of books the last few months have been, honestly. Today we're going to talk about my top 15 books of 2025 so far because I could not narrow it down any more than this. Welcome or welcome back to Francesca's Books. My name is Francesca, these are my books, and here we talk about all things thriller books because the majority of these books in this list are thriller books, believe it or not. All the books in this list, of course, weren't published in 2025. They are my favourite reads of 2025. Some of them were published years ago, but a lot of them are like more recent reads because they're just kind of what I've got my hands on and loved. Before we dive in, as always, all of these books will be linked in my Amazon storefront, so I'll leave the link in the description. You don't have to go searching, like I've done the work for you. And secondly, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I literally love nothing more than replying to every single one of your comments. So the first book is actually a YA thriller, and it's the only YA thriller book on this list because it's not my typical genre. In fact, it's very rare that I enjoy a YA thriller because I feel like there's not enough oomph to them sometimes. But I will say, compared to adult thrillers, they have to have more of like an emotional impact. They can't be as graphic in terms of like the details of the crimes or any like relationships that adults are having, so they have to pack like an emotional punch, and that is exactly what That's Not My Name by Megan Lally did. So in That's Not My Name, we're following two points of view. One of a girl who wakes up on the side of a road, literally in a ditch, and she is fighting for her life. Luckily, there's a policeman that drives by, takes her to the station, and she has absolutely no memory, but her dad turns up to collect her and she goes home traumatized. Then we have another point of view of a male high school student whose girlfriend has suspiciously gone missing, and of course the whole town thinks it's him. I feel like this is the kind of book you could read in one go. You wouldn't even have to look up from the pages because it's such an easy read. This is also on Kindle Unlimited too, so if you guys have just got Kindles over Prime Day, I know it took me a lot of resistance to not get a new one. I already have two, why do we need a third one? Anyway, Kindle Unlimited is free for like new Kindle members, or there's a free trial link in my description if you want to go and check it out. Either way, you can read this without having to buy the physical copy. You could definitely enjoy this book as an adult too. You don't have to be like of a YA age to enjoy this. It also packs a really emotional punch at the end. I wasn't sat there crying, but I was a bit teary maybe. And then next we've got Phantom Limb by Lucinda Berry. I absolutely loved this, but beware before you go in, it's definitely on the darker side. Think like John Marr style dark. This author always dives into topics of mental health, but she is an actual doctor. She is way qualified to talk about these things, and that's why the representation of them is so good. So this follows two twins who, after a very traumatic childhood, they kind of start to distance a little bit, and one of them gets into a new relationship, and it's about how the dynamic changes within that. But this took a wild twist around the 30-40% mark. I'm not going to tell you what the twist is, even though it's in the synopsis, because I was reading, having not read the synopsis, like sorry, what? Some authors do really good final, like, explosive plot twists. Lucinda Berry does this like throughout her books really well. I was looking back at my review for this and I wrote, what in the trigger warning was that? And I think if that doesn't sum it up well, nothing will. However, this did get a 4.5 for me instead of a 5-star. I feel like it could have been very easy like a 350 page book. It is only 240 pages, so the characters I feel like could have just had like a little bit more. Absolutely loved it and would highly recommend it, but this would have been a 5-star if it was slightly bit longer. Next up, with another 4.5, we have Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson, and I absolutely loved the podcast vibes in this book. It wasn't like Listen for the Lie, where it was like a podcast throughout the whole story. It was more of a podcast setup and then following on from an anonymous caller that rang in. So Poe has a podcast show where people come on and anonymously confess their crimes until one day someone comes on and confesses to unaliving her mum. One of my favourite things about this book as well, the chapters are so short. Like, look at this one's like 3 lines, which although it looks quite chunky, it really is not. The writing's really spaced out on page as well. I feel like this is one of those books that's deceptively long. Like, you could just so easily read this like in one night, in one sitting. Very easily. I think this would be perfect if you were hitting a bit of a slump and you were just like, I have no idea what to pick up next. I feel like this would cure that. Okay, next up I'm going to tell you about my first 5-star read of this video because I just finished this a few days ago and my brain is absolutely scrambled to the point where I was like googling all the theories around it, and if you've read this book you will know exactly what I mean, and it is We Used to Live Here. When this came out in the fall last year, it just went straight over my head. Like, people were talking about it and I just thought, yeah, like, all right, sounds good. Finally got around to getting a copy and reading it, and I'm absolutely blown away. This was so good. I do feel like it's a bit of a love it or hate it. I feel like this gets very mixed reviews because you can either deal with a non-conclusive story or you can't. I think this gives a good enough conclusion, but most people in their more negative reviews would say that this doesn't wrap up. So it follows a family who turn up at Charlie and Eve's house. this one right here. They've just bought it, they plan to renovate it, but it's a huge, like really old building. And when this family turn up, the dad's like, I used to live here, would it be okay if like I showed my family around? We were just passing just in the area. And one of the women who's at home is just like, absolutely not, like no, like you can't just come into my house, you're a complete stranger. Anyway, they managed to talk her around and then they come in and then they just basically refused to leave. This just turned messed up like quicker than I could even count myself turning the pages. It was completely out of pocket. It would be perfect for spooky season. I've actually vlogged myself reading this in a summer reading vlog that will be coming soon, which is very exciting because you get to see my like actual live reactions, but you'll know exactly why I enjoyed it so much if you watch that. So I will caveat, of course, I normally read more like psychological thrillers, and this is more of a paranormal thriller slash horror, but it's also not. So if you ask me, is this paranormal? It's not really like a yes or a no. It's kind of giving Home Before Dark by Riley Sager vibes. It's like, is it paranormal? Isn't it paranormal? Like, it's kind of a spoiler to even tell you that, whether it is or it isn't. I do feel like if you've read this already and were like, I just don't get why Francesca's recommending this, like it wasn't even that good, I would highly recommend searching like around this book, like some of the theories around it to do with the ending. There's also some just like really cool little additions. Like, it's one of those that you really have to sit and think on. It's not a immediate, oh, that was a cliffhanger, done. Next up is another 5-star book that I've also recently read. I've been on such a roll recently. In the last 3 weeks, I think I've had another 3-star books add to this list. When I was originally thinking about this video, it was going to be 12 books because that's how many standout recommendations I read so far this year. And then the last couple of weeks, I was like, 15 it is. So of course, if you watched my vacation reading vlog recently, you'll know it is The Girl That Was Taken by Charlie Donnelly. I am obsessed with his author. I am so glad that I found this author. This book was a straight 5-star. There's something just really like magical in his writing, and it takes so much for an author to portray things in a certain way like this author does. Since then, I've also managed to get my hands on a copy of 20 Years Later, which I'm going to read next and have very, very high hopes for. So in The Girl Who Was Taken, we have Megan and Nicole, who have both gone missing from like a high school party. They're about to go off to college and they're all celebrating. So Megan is found after the incident and she's now quite famous within the media. People love to talk to her. Then we've also got Nicole, who was never found, and Nicole's sister is now a forensic pathologist, and that's whose point of view we get to tell this story for the majority of it. We also get the kidnapper's point of view and another few like random chapters from random people as we go, just like one-offs. I just feel like this was the perfect balance of complexity of the story and the writing, but then also the ease of reading. It didn't read popcorn thrillery at all. It felt like something a little bit more sophisticated, but still to the point where you could fly through it. Throughout as well, like at the beginning of chapters or parts or whatever, we got these like really sinister sounding little quotes at the start of everything, to the point where you're kind of like, huh? But they all fed into the narrative as well. They weren't just like little random tidbits. It was just brilliant. I really, really recommend this. It's definitely in my top 3 of this video. Next, we have Message Deleted by K.L. Slater, which was a book that was on my radar for so long. I think I even got an advance copy of it and didn't pick it up until it was actually physically published, but it was absolutely wonderful. I gave this a 4.5. It just didn't have that little bit extra to push it to a 5-star, but I really enjoyed it and very highly recommend it. So this follows a woman who one day gets a text from her friend, which is like, please come here, don't call me, don't text me, I just need you right now. So she goes to her friend and everything's absolutely fine. It's her husband, wife and child and they're all good. So she just leaves, thinks it's a bit weird, but that's it. And with that, the message is deleted, only for tragedy to strike the next day. I feel like the characters really sold me on this one. The plot was fantastic, went in great directions, the twists were amazing as well, and it's not often that I connect to the characters like I did in this book, so it must have had something like a little bit extra. All this author's books as well are set quite close to where I live, so I feel like that gives it an extra little lift. Next up, not one but 2 Andrea Mara books that make this list. I have only really discovered this author this year, so it kind of makes sense that 2 of her books are in my top 15, but she is fantastic. So of course you guys know, because I haven't stopped talking about it, that Hide and Seek by this author was a straight 5-star for me and one of my favourite books of the year so far. This is just a basic missing child story. Like, there's not that much more to the actual concept until you dive in. I can't really explain why, because it's one of those that you just have to trust the process and just read it. But at the very beginning, a mum is playing hide and seek with a child, she counts to 10 and the child is missing. But then we get 2 points of view. So we have one that's in the 80s and we have one that's in like present day. But some of the characters in the 80s overlap into present day, so you kind of get them like 30, 40 years later as well. And of course they're searching for a missing child. This one wrapped up perfectly. The execution was honestly just flawless, and it's really rare that I find myself reaching for a book at times when I should just be getting on with other things. I think because I read so much, I kind of have like designated reading time, and I'm quite happy normally to just wait and enjoy that time. With this one, I was like reading it getting in and out of an Uber. So after loving Hide and Seek, I also read No One Saw a Thing and Someone in the Attic. I loved both of those books. They both got a 4.5 from me, but didn't quite make that 5-star rating until we got to All Her Fault, another fantastic read. So in this one, we have a mum who goes to pick up her son Milo from a play date at one of her new friends' houses. She gets there, the woman opens the door, has no idea who Milo is. She has no nanny that could have any idea who Milo is, and Milo's not there. So of course, panic breaks loose, as it would. Honestly, this author just doesn't fail me. I know exactly what I'm going to be getting when I dive into one of her books, and I just know it's going to be so satisfying. I also love with her books that literally on page 1, the concept starts. So that's the concept, and on page 1 she knocks on this door and the boy isn't there. Literally, "Hi, I'm Marissa, I'm here to pick up my son Milo," she says to the woman. "Ah, you must have the wrong house, there's nobody called Milo here." Page 1! I also love this ending. It's just an immediate yes from me, 5 stars. And then the next book isn't a thriller, but it reads like a thriller, hence why I'm still including it. And it is The Favourites by Elaine Fargo. I really feel like if you're a thriller girly and want something that's not as classic psychological thriller, you will love this. So this follows a couple of Olympic ice dancers, and stay with me because I also was not invested when I heard the synopsis, but let me tell you why you should read it. So it follows their journey, but it's over 20 or 30 years, so you can like get the complete character development of these people from like children, like 11, 12, all the way through their entire journey with this. They've also got a couple of rivals which will go to the extreme to win. That kind of sums up the whole plot of this book, but the way it's told is what clinched it for me. So you've got our main storyline for these two main ice dancers, and then it's almost told in a documentary style looking back. So say present day is like the 20 or 30 years in the future. We start with documentary snippets from here, but then also the journey in chronological order as well. And the people who are in the documentary style snippets, I don't really know what to call it because it's not an actual literal documentary. They're not characters that you would think should be in that. So they're like really random little Easter egg characters as we go. They're not the main characters, which I think is just fantastic. There was scandal, there was drama, it was interesting learning about a new sport. I just can't recommend this one enough. It was an easy 5-star for me. Then if you're thinking, Fran, no, like just go back to your thrillers. This is one of the darkest I've read. Another 5-star is The Last Party by A.R. Torre, and I love this. I think this is another one that will be in my top 3 from this video. So in this book, you'll be pleased to know we are back with our serial unalivers, and we have a mum who is picture perfect. She presents really well to all the other school mums. She's in all the like PTA meetings and everything, but she's actually secretly obsessed with a serial unaliver who's in jail serving time for his serial unalivings. And from the very beginning of this book, she wants to prove herself to him. This mum will go to extreme lengths to prove her worth to this random guy in prison. We've also got both of their points of view, so we have the serial unalivers and Perla, our female main character's point of view, and then also in some of the chapters we have these little like starts of a paragraph that are from random people, so the kind of similar concept to The Favourites, but we just get like this much instead of them being like whole chapters. They just give you like a tiny little insight into where the next bit may go, and I love that. It's like such a good way to just keep you hooked into the story. And then next up we have The Business Trip by Jessie Garcia. You know this must be good because I have it in hardback, but it was brilliant. I gave it a 4.5, not a 5, but it was still definitely one of my favourite reads of the year. The concept of this one is kind of hard to explain because the opening is we have two women who get on the same flight. They have a connection to the same guy. They tell their friends and family, oh, the plane's, you know, taking off, like, you know, have a great trip, whatever. But then there's nothing really comes back after that. I can't really say anymore. What I loved about it is our two female main characters are very like chalk and cheese. Like one of them is trying to run away from like an abusive relationship, so she's really not in a good headspace. She's really like losing herself. And then we have another woman who is a really high up like director of something within a news agency, and she's going for like a work trip, you know, and she's really, you know, dressed up, feeling good about herself. It's kind of giving like Lee and Hazel from The Drowning Woman, like a complete juxtaposition. I do feel like if it hadn't been for the ending, this would have just been the easiest 5-star I'd ever given. I just think it felt a tiny bit flat in the last 30 pages. I think there could have been a lot more justification and a almost less rushed but more explained ending. Also, if you're an audiobook fan, this one read fantastically on audio because it has a full cast, which is quite rare for books to have an actor for every single character, but this one did it wonderfully. I also have a code for BookBeat if you guys want to try that. It is UK only, but it does give you 90 days completely free. The offer's normally 30 days, and they emailed me literally this morning being like, do you want a 90-day code for your followers? I was like, absolutely I do. So I'll leave that in the description if you're interested. But yeah, anyway, back to this one. The story was also really compelling from like like the actual get-go, so very highly recommend. Then next up we have another book by Lucinda Berry, another author to make 2 spots on this list, and it is Keep Your Friends Close. This one was released in 2024, I believe, but this is just all the rich people drama, everything Francesca loves. So this starts with like a pool party. It's like very West Hollywood mums club gone wrong, and one of them is found in the pool unalived, but all the husbands are there, all the wives are there, all the kids are there. It's very like, there's a lot of suspects from the get-go, but it's the like it girl that's found in the pool. So 3 of the women are the main characters in this story, and we get all of their points of view, which I very much enjoyed. And this rich people drama style thriller from the start very much turns into like a darker mystery, I guess. It was basically a tale of deceit and revenge, and I feel like sometimes rich people drama thriller books, like books that sit in this area like domestic noir, they're nowhere near dark enough. You just get this like fluffy relationshipy type narrative, but this one was sufficiently dark. I mean, I don't really know what I expect from Lucinda Berry. All of her books are dark, but she kind of combined that side of things and then the rich people drama side of things perfectly. I gave this 4.5, and it's also another one that's on Kindle Unlimited as well. Next up, you guys know I've been loving Mary Kubica so far this year and in 2024. So one of the last books I read from this author was The Good Girl, and this is actually her debut novel, and this easily made a top spot on this list. So this follows our female main character who has a one-night stand from this guy she's just met in a bar, and things turn dark very, very quickly. From the outset, this just sounds like it's a guy with an ulterior motive. He takes this girl home and does some horrible things to her. It's nothing like that. So with this, there were 3 point of views, and you were told on multiple timelines of these point of views as well, but it was somehow really easily digestible and very easy to understand. I think some authors really struggle with this to get the point of views right to the point where there's not like too many characters or too many timelines, but this one landed very well. It also got to the point where there's a few dilemmas that even I'm not sure what I would have done in that situation, and I like books like that make you think like a little bit more. I'm not here like with my literary pile of books being like, oh yeah, that really made me think, but sometimes I think it's good. So I gave this one 4.5. I really do feel like the emotional layer to this as well kind of like added to the whole thing for me, but yeah, we love Mary Kubica. So before we go on to my very last pick, the next mention is a 4.5, and it is Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. When I first finished this, I was like, this is kind of like a 4, but then on reflection, it's definitely more like a 4.5. It follows this woman who gets up one day, she goes to work, it's a normal day, she's just back after maternity leave, but you know, she's taking it in a stride. She's an it girl, she can do this. And then she sees on the news, like in the office, that there's a hostage situation really close to where she lives, and her husband is also missing. So she's like, oh, well, that's not great, is it? Her husband's been taken hostage. However, her husband is the one that's taken the hostages. You are thrown right into the middle of the action of this book, and it's set into a couple of parts. So the first part is all the intricate details and the suspense, and I was like, if this book continues to be this intense, I'm literally gonna have a panic attack. It was so like, you really felt like you were there. And then it moved on to a bit more of like the backstories and like the different scenarios after the actual day of the hostage itself, which meant the pace did slow down, but I feel like if it had kept the initial pace, it would have just been like an action book. I do feel like this took quite an obvious route through the narrative. It wasn't like there was some twist where you were like, I didn't see that coming. The twists felt quite organic in the way that they were presented. I've read a couple of other books by this author, but this one made me think I'm going to dive into the rest of her backlist. And before I tell you about the final book, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have enjoyed this video. And I think this one is a little bit of a curveball, which is why I've saved it for last, but it is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And you're going to be like, that's not a thriller, that's not a thriller. By definition, it's not a thriller, but it also literally made me cry. Like, there's no way I could include it in this list of my favourite books so far. So similarly to the favourites, we've got quite a high intensity pace of the story, and I feel like with Taylor Jenkins Reid, you're not just getting one thing, you're kind of getting like thriller, romance, action, anything that's not fantasy kind of thrown into one. And guys, we are following NASA, the 80s, women and lesbians. It's my dream book. So we've got our main character Joan, who's accepted onto NASA's 1980 something space program, and obviously women's roles are becoming increasingly available in these fields, but at the same time they are still viewed in a certain way. I think it was very eye-opening as a woman who sat in 2025 with the current state of being a woman versus a guy versus the 80s. I feel like it just opened my mind. I'm not going to sit and have like a debate on like feminism because I'm nowhere near educated enough to give that conversation any justice whatsoever, but it was still interesting even just from being a woman's perspective. It's a story of space exploration, love, what it means to be a woman, action. It was just wonderful, and when I finished this, my only review was, did I finish this book or did it finish me? Because I am deceased, and I stand by it. So as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I cannot wait to see you next time.